Hey, I'm Fifi, and for the last 20 years, I'm allergic to light. Since I was a kid, I found out that if I ever got near a light, I would die. Well, that's what my mom told me anyway. And when I tried to test it, so I waited for my mom to pass out after getting drunk, and I snuck outside and stood on the porch staring at the boy next door playing with his ball. I ran towards the boy, but I felt myself burning. I must have watched the boy for about 20 minutes before my mom dragged me by my hair and pulling me inside. While my mom forced me inside, the little boy screamed, "Daddy, I saw a ghost!" and ran away scared. As for my mom, it was like she wanted me dead at that point. She said if I ever went outside again, she'd lock me up in the basement forever. She then rubbed some kind of cream on me that made my skin burn so bad. I started crying, but then she screamed, "Look what you did to yourself, you stupid kid!" I looked in the mirror above and was terrified at what I saw. I cried and begged for my mother's forgiveness, promising I'd never leave my room again. After that day, my mom made my life hell. She glued extra thick black cardboard to my window and she changed my locks. Then she started locking me in my room. But if I was good during the day, she'd reward me with some cookies at night. She never allowed me to watch TV, though I could listen to the weather channel on the radio. But the little boy I saw stuck in my mind. Why was me that was allergic to light and not him? So, when I asked my mom about it, she told me to stop being a pain in the ass and to keep my mouth shut or else I'll be grounded. After that day, there were no more cookies or good-tasting food. And then things got even worse. My mom came home less and less, and I was locked in my room most of the time. I'd wake up, eat the breakfast that my mom bought me, and then I'd play with a few broken toys that I had. The only thing that entertained me was a thumping sound that felt like someone was throwing something against the wall. I fantasized that it was a little boy playing with his ball. A few weeks later, I heard different voices coming from outside. I put my ear against the wall and could just make out what they were saying. "Dad, seriously, I saw her, I swear." "Brady, there ain't no kids living at that house. It's just that strange woman who comes and goes. I ain't never seen no kid, now stop it." "But Dad," so his name was Brady. I knew he called me a ghost, but I wanted to be his friend so bad. That night, my mom came and said we were moving out because of how stupid I've been, and now there was a rumor going around the neighborhood saying I'm contagious. I asked how come she was fine then, and she sent me to bed without dinner and locked my door. Up until that point, I'd only ever been around my mom and then of course that one glimpse of the boy next door. So when a man appeared by my bed in the middle of the night, I screamed. He quickly put his hands across my mouth and told me to get up. Then he put a black cloth over me, and then him and my mom carried me outside to the car. I didn't know where we were going because they blindfolded me. I assumed it was to protect my eyes from all the lights. After a while, we stopped and they carried me out of the car. I asked my mom who is this man and where were we going? And she told me this was our new house and that this was her boyfriend and he was a doctor and would take good care of me. I asked if he was my new daddy and she just laughed and said, "Sure, honey, call him daddy." Then they took me to my new room and it was even smaller than my old room. It smelled so bad, and it was filled with trash bags that were overflowing. There wasn't even a window. And that is how I lived for years. The only thing that kept me company were some mice that managed to crawl under the door. I wished I could shrink myself so I could escape like them, but I had no chance of that. They always locked me in, and the older I got, the less I cared. I accepted that this was my life even though it was hell. When I needed to bath, my mom's boyfriend escorted me to the bathroom to make sure no light went near me. And then he gave me this special red flashlight to read with. He said that I had to study or I'd be dumb. But what was the point? It's not like I was going anywhere. When I was about 19, I couldn't take it anymore. My mom's boyfriend was horrible and seriously creeped me out. And he always said he wasn't looking, but I knew he was. I heard him shouting at my mom, and one time she had a black eye and I knew he'd done it and said I'd be next if I didn't hold my tongue. I had to get out of there. One morning, I heard my mom leaving for work. I knew her boyfriend was still in bed. I've been collecting objects to use to open my door. I used paperclip, and to my complete surprise, it opened. Without even thinking, I ran for the front door, but as soon as I saw the sun, I jumped back. I didn't want to die. I heard my mom's boyfriend snoring, so I crept through the kitchen. I wasn't ready to be killed by the light, but I could at least steal some chocolate. But then I saw it, his phone. I grabbed it and made it back to my room just in time before he came staggering out into the hall. I looked down at it and smiled. This could help me with my exit plan. I was worried that the light would hurt me, but I put my sunglasses on, then sat and scrolled through his messages. And then I heard his voice. He'd realized his phone was missing. He was shouting and I heard him run out onto the street. Later, when he brought me lunch, he told me someone had broken into the house while we were asleep and stolen his phone. I almost laughed. He didn't even suspect me one bit. For the first time in my life, I used Google. I heard about it on the radio, but I couldn't believe it. You could search for anything. For some reason, the first thing I typed in was Brady, and then I put our old address. I only remembered it because Mom gave me old envelopes with our address to draw on while she worked. So many things popped up, and one of them was something called Facebook. I clicked on the link and Brady's photo popped up. He was about 14 years older, but it was definitely him. I never ever forgot a face. I mean, I'd only see about 3 in my life. I set up a profile and messaged him. I kept the phone hidden under my pillow and waited for him to reply. But then that night, something horrific happened. I was fast asleep and suddenly the phone started ringing. I couldn't find it in the dark and then it was too late. I heard my mom walking up the other side of the wall and I still couldn't turn it off. Suddenly her and her boyfriend were up looking for his phone and I just lay there frozen. I turned it off and stuck it down my pants. Thank God they didn't come in and search my room. But the next morning, the phone couldn't turn on. How stupid I've been. Obviously, it needed a charger. I had to wait for 3 days until my next bath. My mom's boyfriend now waited outside the door while I bathed. I told him I was on my period and needed to go to the other room to get some tampons. He immediately let me go and then went back to scrolling on his new phone. His older charger was still plugged in the next to the toaster. I grabbed it, shoved it under my towel, and went back to my room. I was dying to see if Brady had replied. I plugged it into the wall and suddenly the house went silent. I dripped electricity. 10 minutes later, it was back on again and the phone was charging and Brady had actually replied. He said he remembered me and he knew that I'd been real. Then he asked me where we'd moved to and if I was okay. For months, we messaged back and forth and he kept trying to persuade me to leave. One day, I even called him. He said that there was no way I was allergic to light and told me it was just sunburn that first time, but I didn't believe him. Why else would my mom keep me locked away all these years if it wasn't to protect me? He said he'd call the cops, but I told him I wouldn't speak to him anymore if he did that. Then one night, my mom and her boyfriend had a pretty nasty fight. I could hear things being thrown and suddenly I heard what they were saying. It's been 20 bloody years and I can't take it anymore. We need to kick her out. It's not like we will get caught now anyway. It's been too long. What do you mean, we? It's you that kidnapped her, not me. She's not even your child. Tell her to bugger off. I sat there, my ear against the wall, in complete and utter shock. Kidnapped? Not her child. No, this couldn't be. I messaged Brady and told him I was finally going to run away. I waited until the arguing died down and I heard them snoring. I grabbed the paperclip and twisted into the lock, and then I didn't even bother to look for the key to the front door. I just smashed the front window and climbed out. I cut my leg, but I didn't even care. I heard my mom scream and I started running. For the first time ever, I was free. I ran until I couldn't run anymore, but then I saw lights. It was my mom's car, and it was getting closer. I leaped into a bush and called Brady. I told him I was there, and he said he'd be right over. Finally, a car pulled up, and I came out of the bush, ready to run into Brady's arms. But it wasn't Brady. It was my mom and her boyfriend. "Get back into the car, Missy, or would you rather let the lights kill you? Your choice," my mom said, coming towards me in a menacing way. I just started running again, but they were too quick for me. They were right behind me, and I was sure I was about to be carried back to that prison of a house. Suddenly, another car appeared. It was Brady, and oh my God, he was in a cop's car. My mom and her boyfriend were about to leave, but it was too late for that. Brady had called his colleagues, and suddenly 2 other cop cars arrived and surrounded them. This whole time I'd be speaking to Brady, and he never once mentioned he was a cop. We all got taken down to the police station and I refused to go inside. I said the bright lights would kill me and Brady told me to trust him and I just followed him. He said I'd be fine. And believe it or not, I was fine. I wasn't allergic to light. But that meant, yep, my whole life had been one gigantic lie. As Brady and the chief constable told me everything, I just sat there speechless. I wasn't who I thought I was. I wasn't Shelley. In fact, my real name was Alice, and my mom was 100% not my mom. She was arrested not just for keeping me as a prisoner, but also for kidnapping me when I was just 6 months old. I couldn't believe it. I sat there crying. I'd been hidden away because this woman had done something awful, and she was so afraid of getting caught that she just buried the evidence, aka me. 2 innocent men had been charged with kidnapping me and murdering me all those years ago and sentenced to life imprisonment, and in actual fact, it was all this woman's fault. I won't even say mom anymore because she's nothing to me. 20 years of my life wasted all because this psycho woman and her boyfriend wanted a baby of their own.